Hey you guys, this is a quick video to go along with the Jewel tutorial. The illustration that I did in the magazine is elaborate and has a lot of stuff going on into it, so I thought I would just do a little video that shows just me painting a jewel by itself real quick and kind of go through the steps. So here obviously I've got the main shape, which I put down with a marquee. And this isn't so important, but I'm just shading the edges a little bit to begin giving the gem kind of a three-dimensional round feeling. But once you put the subsurface glow in there, it'll do this as well, but this just kind of pushes the three-dimensionality a bit. And that was a Gaussian blur. This whole thing's going to take about 10 minutes. But that Gaussian blur just kind of makes the transition smooth, because when you have a stone, I'm doing a smooth stone, and when you have something smooth like this, there are a lot of soft edges, especially below the surface. You get hard edges in the highlights that sit on top of the surface, but all the stuff below tends to be kind of soft. Alright, so this is the subsurface scattering that causes that light glow in the middle of the jewel. And I'm just using a big, soft, round brush and just lightly putting it in. And everything below the surface, like the inner glow and the subsurface highlights that I'll put on in a second, those things all tend to be whatever the local color of the gem is. So in this case, since it's kind of a deep red, everything happening below the surface is going to be a saturated version of that red. And for the sake of just whenever you have a translucent, colorful thing, you want to try to keep things saturate inside. And so now what I'm painting this is where the light is passing through the gem and hitting the surface below it, or the lip in the case of the illustration, the hilt, but whatever the jewel is resting in. And basically just think of it as light passing through the top and hitting the back end of the jewel. And again, because it's below the surface, that stuff is going to be whatever, a more saturated, lighter version of whatever the local color of the gem is. And when I say local color, I just mean if you looked at it in a white room with lights that are not going to alter the color, the local color is whatever the color of that object is. So in this case, red. Alright, so now I'm putting on the top highlights, and because these are on the surface, and these are a direct reflection of whatever the light source is, they are not the local color of the gem. So in this case, as with kind of my default situation, the light's a little bit yellow, and so the highlights on top are going to feel a little bit yellow. And also you're going to get more hard edges. Reflections on shiny surfaces, you'll usually get hard edges and soft edges in each part of the reflection. It's very rare that you get something that's entirely hard. And you do get stuff that's totally soft, but it doesn't stand out as much. But for all these kinds of specular highlights, there's going to be a hard edge and a soft edge somewhere. Also, if you're new to working with highlights, just keep in mind that all the stuff that's being reflected in this gem, essentially it's like if you were to wrap a mirror around the top of the gem, or a stone or something, and those reflections are just reflections of the brightest things in the room around the gem. So like that little, that round highlight, that might be like a lamp on the ceiling behind the viewer. Also, with anything reflective, the edges tend to catch a bit more light than everywhere else, so it will help the reflectivity of everything if you just, I don't think that's a word. It will help things feel more reflective if there are little highlights kind of grabbing the edge. Now you can push the highlights as much as you want. In this case, I am just kind of putting in a little more bright core light into them so that you can sort of feel the light source. And to show how shiny you can make the gems. So here I'm just playing with a little bit of color in the background and giving you an idea of what you would do if the gem was on a colored surface, because again, since it's reflective and everything you're seeing on the surface is a reflection, or I should say is the things around the gem being bounced off the surface of the gem and into your eyes. So if there's a colored surface below, you're going to want a bit of that color kind of all around the edges of the gem where it's reflecting the ground, or, you know, whatever surface it's on. And here, by using the slider, you can see how, as you might expect, changing the colors around the gem, I don't really need to change the highlights. If the light sources changed, you'd have to change the highlights, but I'm just making the light sources up anyway. But you just have to change the reflected colors. And if you have it on a separate layer, I mean, you can experiment like crazy with the slider. So yeah, you can hear I'm putting a bit of green around the whole thing. And then, like before with the modeling I did around the edges, I'll just use a bit of Gaussian blur. Yeah, so you can see that's how the different layers work, and that's how it looks on top of the color. And hopefully this will give you a better idea of how to paint jewels. All right, thanks a lot, guys.